Now, which side are you taking on this?
Sure. So, well, I am a capitalist,
Okay.
so I believe in capitalism. What about you?
I mean, I'm not going to say it's totally a horrible system, but I think it has some problems.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, how about we do this? How about we ask each other about each other's opinions or positions, and then we can get into like discussing what we think the better solution is.
For sure.
Okay, cool. So, I'm just gonna ask you a few questions, and you can just answer them to me as honestly as you want. But I'm gonna start with the foundational framework, and then build up to the legal framework. If you're cool with that.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so what is your purpose for life?
My purpose is to try to share knowledge with people and try to make a better society.
Okay, a better society. Why do you want a better society?
Because I think it would be beneficial for humanity to have a better society.
Okay. Do you think it would be better for humanity as in like it would reduce the suffering?
Yeah, that's one aspect, yeah.
Are there any other aspects?
Well, I mean, even for things that aren't necessarily dealing with suffering, it will help people make better choices in life. Like, for example, if I know the truth, or at least get rid of false ideas, do you think I will make better choices in life?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that depends on your direction for life. Because if you're trying to make better decisions to what end? Right?
I mean, for survival, just for quality of life, to have a good life.
Interesting. You know what? A capitalism debate could literally just be spent on this topic right here. And that's actually why I started with this question. Because I've been struggling with that question for a while now. And it appears to me that if we understand the purpose of life, all other answers will flow from it naturally.
Well, are you saying that there is an absolute purpose for everybody in life?
Well, I believe that there has to be, right? So like, according to the laws of logic, if you agree with the laws of logic, there's something called the law of causality. And the law of causality comes directly from the laws of logic. And from the law of causality comes another law called the principle of sufficient reason. And it means that everything must have a purpose.
Okay,
And
so
I
what
guess
is the purpose of life?
Right, that's the question. And there's two things that I've narrowed it down to, and you can tell me if you see a third option, because I'd be very curious if you do. I see there's only two options for life. The first one is pleasure, and the second one is choice. And from what I can see, I don't see any other options from that, because every other answer I give seems to be some sort of subcategory of those two.
Flourishing?
Right, I would define flourishing under pleasure, because flourishing would be a physiological response, right?
Well, I mean, if you think about flourishing of humanity, I might do something that could be very detrimental to me because society right now might think it's wrong, but in the long run, after I'm dead, will benefit humanity if they start to understand it, right? So that I don't think I'm really getting pleasure out of that. In fact, I end up with pain. But somehow this might end up being beneficial and help humanity flourish.
That's true. The way I see this is that when you choose something that's painful for you, what you're doing is you're choosing a lesser of two decisions that you would... You're choosing a lesser of two evils, because the choice that you make is the choice that you prefer more. So if you prefer to go to the gym, it's not because directly you're going to experience pain, but in the long term, you're going to, as you would call, flourish. So you're going to have more fulfillment, you're going to feel better for yourself in the future, and it's going to be magnitudes better. You're going to have magnitudes more pleasure than you would suffer in that moment, right?
Yeah, I think an even better example is like the dentist, right? The dentist is going to cause you pain, but in the long run, this is going to help prevent pain.
Yeah, no, that's a good example too. So to answer your question, I would also see that pain as a form of pleasure, because it's not directly giving you pleasure, but it would be called like eudaimonia, right? Eudaimonia was that was Plato, I think, right? It was either Plato or Aristotle. And eudaimonia is essentially this idea that yes, you're going to suffer, and you need to accept to suffer to get to the ends, or because the means is suffering, but the ends is going to be flourishing. And it's going to be, when you're flourishing, you're going to experience satisfaction and fulfillment, and the closest thing to happiness you can get in the long run. And therefore, the overall pleasure will override however much suffering you have.
Yeah, but you really only get that pleasure if you succeed.
Yeah, it's a gamble. But I would argue that it's a gamble you would rationally have to make, because if you instead choose to be a hedonist, that's going to, what is that going to do? If you choose to be a hedonist, you are for sure going to suffer. Like, you're going to absolutely suffer necessarily, because hedonism with fleeting moments of pleasure is not going to be able to compare to the overwhelming amount of suffering in the world. So like instant jolts of like, sex and like eating food that you enjoy, and gambling and like doing these fleeting expedient forms of pleasure is going to, first of all, it's going to be wasting your time that you could be doing to improve your flourishing. And at the same time, you're going to, when you're not having those feelings of expedient pleasure, you're going to be suffering the rest of the time. Like maybe you have a bad job that you hate. Maybe you can't sleep well at night. Maybe you have chronic pains. All those moments that you're not feeling expedient pleasure, you're going to be feeling pain. And so the rest of your life will be a tremendous amount of pain, which overrides that pleasure. So to be a hedonist is to sort of fall into a life of like absolute suffering.
So would you say greed is a hedonistic trait?
Yeah. I think greed is a short term. It would be a short term, or what I would call a high time preference activity. It means you're trying to, it wouldn't be fraud technically, but greed seems to me to be what would it be? It would be a motivation that leads you towards an expedient pleasure that will be fleeting, right? Or would you disagree with that?
No, I agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, I would see greed as, in fact, I might see all the 7 deadly sins as forms of hedonism. And I can see that because if you take each one and you analyze it to its logical outcome, they will all eventually become, what would you call them? They would be expedient. Because if you take them all one by one, we could definitely follow the trail down. So like if you do pride is hedonistic because, and it's interesting, I learned this firsthand experience, but the thing about pride is, it doesn't matter how amazing and fantastical of a person you are if you can't share that joy with other people. And the reason pride is so dangerous is, and the most deadly of all the sins, is that pride will push away people that you care about, and it will push away people that respect you.
I think too much pride, definitely, yes, I agree. That could be a problem. But like, I mean, if I'm just doing a job, like say I'm doing concrete, and I lay a really nice driveway down, I think it's okay to be proud that I did a good job on that. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, in one of Plato's works, I forget which one, it might be the Republic, he talks about all the virtues and vices, and I think the 7 deadly sins are in there. And one of them is pride, and I forget. So he's got like this scale for every single virtue
Yep.
and vice,
Yep.
and pride would be on the negative side of the scale, where it would be high time preference. And then I forget what's on the other side. He uses all kinds of crazy words that I can't memorize. But pride would be on one end of the scale, and then on the other radical end of the scale would be the opposite of pride, which might be like a type of humility that is like, what would you say? Self-deprecating, probably, something like that. But like right in the middle is where those two things meet in the middle, and you have that perfect balance of pride and whatever humility is.
Okay, I have to ask because you're making a lot of like biblical references, like with the seven deadly sins and stuff like that. So are you a theist at all?
Well, yeah, I am a theist.
Okay. So
Are you as well?
No, I'm an agnostic atheist.
Okay, interesting.
What would you say capitalism does to combat greed?
So, okay, the way I would put this, and first of all, I'll tell you my purpose for life. And I'm still working on this. I've been working on this project for a while, which I just told you about, which is foundational theories of life. And the two theories I found are pleasure and choice. And I'm not going to get into it, but I think that choice is the reason for life. And so working my way down, I would say that the reason capitalism is the correct system, which is the lack of a system, the lack of a structure is capitalism, is because I believe that the reason for life is choice, and people need to maximize their choice in order to fulfill their purpose in life. So if we were to do like something utilitarian, first of all, I'm not even sure if I would grant that communism or socialism leads to the greatest overall pleasure, because I think they're skirting by meaning and fulfillment and eudaimonia. I think the communists and the socialists are aiming for material, what would you call?
Equality?
Yeah, material equality, basically. And I would see it as not achieving the thing that they want to live for. Now, I think that they have a point when they say that it's, yes, like, I don't like to use the words good and bad, because I don't believe in morality, but I would say that in their perspective, it is good for people to have basic certain things so that they can survive, so that they can achieve their purpose in life. But I would say that their use of violence overrides that purpose in life. So while it's good for people to choose, it's worse for people to take others' choice away. And so by that calculation, I would say that capitalism is better than communism, because it's more important for everyone to have choice than for some people to have choice.
Okay, what type of theist are you, if you don't mind me asking? Because you said that you don't believe in morality, and that seems very confusing to me.
Well, I'm probably the most incoherent theist you would ever meet, because I have a lot of very radical views that are different from any like political constellations. So like, what type of theist am I?
Christian.
Let's say I believe God exists. I would probably ascribe more closely to the Christianity scope of things, non-denominational Christianity, and I don't have all the answers figured out. I believe that God exists and that can be logically proven, at least the thing that we refer to as God. I can't prove that the theological Judeo-Christian God is the God that exists.
Okay. I just found that a little weird. So when you gave your answer for like how does capitalism like kind of deal with greed, I didn't really feel like I saw anything that actually deals with greed.
Oh, right, greed. So I believe that people have, I believe that the purpose of life is for people to choose between good and evil. So I don't think the purpose of life is to do good deeds. I think the purpose of life is to choose good deeds, because then there would be no point in choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No. I'm a determinist myself.
I am too.
How are you a determinist, but you believe the purpose of life is choice?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that question. I actually struggled for this for a very long time, because it would seem that determinism is sort of like equal with nihilism, in that there can't be purpose if there is no choice, because everything must take a very specific path, and there's no way of changing it otherwise. So the thing I grappled with is trying to understand if there's some sort of compatibilism between free will and determinism. And from what I can understand, I think that whatever it is we call choice exists, but it is also determined. But I think that it doesn't matter because we don't know the future. And I don't think we can know the future. I think we could know the future if we could account for every single variable in the universe, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. And so while the future is determined, it doesn't matter because we don't know the future, and therefore our choices, what we call choices, won't be affected by the future because we can't know the future. I know that sounds extremely confusing and a lot of me coping, but that's sort of the answer I found, that like choice exists within a deterministic framework.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree that there is choice in determinism. I just think that those choices that the person makes are determined. I think if you were put in the exact same situation at the exact same time with the exact same knowledge that you have, you're just always going to make that same choice.
Agreed. But my way of scooting out of this position is that we don't know. So humans don't know, and they will never know. Like potentially they could know, like 1,000 years into the future when we have like super powerful like AI and we have every way of calculating the processes of the universe. But this is kind of where my mysticism creeps in, my irrational mysticism creeps in, where since I believe that a God exists, I don't believe that that's part of the plan. And while we could potentially reach a point in the future where we could see the future, I don't think that we ever will see the future. And I think that's kind of the point. I agree with you that if we could see the future, then there probably wouldn't be a purpose in life. But we can't see the future. And so as far as we're concerned, the future is completely unknown. We have no idea what will happen.
I mean, there's certain things that we could take an educated guess on, right? Like, because my ex-girlfriend was a really bad driver, and I ended up having a dream that she got into a car accident. That very same day, she got into a car accident. I don't think this was prophetic or anything. I just think, in my mind, I understood she was a bad driver, and it was inevitable that she's probably going to get into an accident because her driving skills are bad. And then she did. Just happened to happen on the same day that I had that dream, right?
Okay, yeah. No, I think there's something interesting about that. I don't believe, I'm not sure I would believe in any mysticism. I just think that, I think that science can explain everything, but I think that the universe is so incredibly complex that we're a very far way from understanding how everything works. And I do think that there's biological processes which we don't fully understand yet, like such as precognition, that biological factors could account for. Like the human body is extremely complex, and we don't know how the subconscious works. So I think there's many parts of the human physiology that has incredible abilities that we don't know about yet. And one of those abilities might be like a very, very powerful calculation mechanism. And that's sort of what the subconscious is. And that could be related to what we would call precognition now. But it could just be like an extremely advanced but like calculation system of like taking all these factors in and then sort of like taking guesses at the future. And that could be like how some dreams tell the future. It could be like this extremely extremely complicated calculation system, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay, I just need a few minutes. I gotta just go for a cigarette. But this is the topic that I really want to get into.
What, subconscious?
The unconscious mind and the conscious mind, because this is where I've focused about 6 or 7 years of my life now.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it. I friended you, I think.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a bit. Yeah, when I get back, I'll get into this, but I'll just leave you with the question that I start this off with. Okay, a bat and a ball together cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much did the ball cost?